G'day, Doggies fans, all things Bulldogs. It's episode 42 or 43. I don't know. I just put 42 in. How you going? G'day, Dave. Dave says, happy birthday for the other day, you sexy beast. Thank you very much, Dave. I am a sexy beast, as you can see, and much appreciated, mate. Don't know how old I am, so don't ask. Forgotten. Old enough to forget. So, had a good day with family. Got a new pool table, or second-hand one, but it's a pool table. So loving that. So be out in the man shed playing pool really badly. And I'm getting a Bulldogs cue stick as my other present, as well as some other stuff that we got. So thank you very much. Yeah, it is very sweet. So welcome to everyone who's joined so far. Thank you to everyone who's subscribed to the channel. We slowly build and build and build, and it's more than I could ever dream or hope for. And now I'm going to look forward to bringing a couple of you guys on so we can just have a yarn and put a face to the name sort of thing. And you might have some stuff which people will really value, or some opinions or different points of view, and that will be good to hear. G'day, Peter. How you going, mate? Hope you're well, buddy. Well, I caught up with you already tonight, but can never get enough of Pete Webber. And hopefully he'll get his head on this program eventually. So we're going to talk about the Bulldogs report card up to round 11. I've sort of said, do we expect too much? And that's without being mediocre. We'll talk a little bit about the Canberra Raiders game and this must-win clash against the Dragons. It's a game which holds, I think, a lot more in it. Not just because we must win. They're currently on 5 wins. We're on 4. We need to beat them to go ahead of them on the ladder. But having New Brown playing for them, Raymond Fatala Mariner and Kyle Flanagan, it holds a lot more in it. And I don't believe any of those guys have really set the world on fire. And Pete actually posted it on All Things Bulldogs, a good comparison. I know stats don't mean everything, but Kyle Flanagan seems to be getting a hell of a lot of positive press for the performance of the Dragons. But if you look at his stats, they are not very good in comparison to our current half, who is constantly having his stats criticised by people who want to see changes in that space, and that's their opinion. I find both halves are gritty. I think both halves defend their ass off and work, and I think both halves have aren't fast enough to take on the line and sort of make breaks. And that's the thing. And with Kyle, you know, he's going to, people hang off him. We used to talk about it all the time. They used to hang off him and sort of, you know, dare him to run because they felt that they could cover him. Whereas Drew, they always know, everyone knows he's going to run the ball as well. But he can break a tackle, Drew, because he's a bit bigger, you know. And we saw that good offload that he got to Marnie, which nearly won us the game late. And I felt that was probably Drew's best statistical performance in attack for the season. But anyway, and a few have said the same thing. But I think the issue for a lot of people is that we're having tight games and we're not sort of winning enough of them. And that's the question. Are we expecting too much? Is it good enough to be in those tight games? At this stage, with what we were predicting at the start of this season, none of us were really predicting a top 8 finish outside of, you know, the 20-year Dogs are supposed to win every 20 years, and we're always hopeful, and we know we've got some real strike in our team, and we know we've got some good players, and we can get behind them and believe in them with what we've seen. but we knew our forward pack was pretty small. But is that by design? Are they're sort of playing like they prefer to have a smaller pack almost, because they keep picking a small bench? Is that working or not working? Because we still are number one at reducing the amount of meters that teams are making in their average sets, which is complete opposite to last year, where we were last in that by a long way. We're still last in the amount of post-contact meters we make, which is another thing as well. The team is the same team that was named last Tuesday for the Magic Round game. With the only difference is that Toby Sexton's now number 23 and Blake Wilson's number 22 or 21. But it's the same people on the extended bench. Jamin Salmon had a staph infection and was replaced by Powasa last week. And we'll talk about that game now. So 24 to 20. Let's have a look at it. And then we'll go into the report card for the Bulldogs over the whole amount. I'll present that for us on the screen. So there we go. So it was 4 tries all. We scored our points when they were down to 12 men. Their first 2 tries, the second minute, Connor Tracy drops the footy. Savage picks up the ball and scores. Second try, 19th minute. Jacob Carraz hit with a really good tackle. Ball spills free. Sebastian Chris picks it up, scores. You know, that's 12 points. We lost by 4. We blew about 4 or 5 chances. This team is creating opportunities. That is, as long as they keep doing that, they were creating opportunities before they went down to 12 men. We blew, you know, it's funny because when Josh Adokar puts that kick in and then he's taken out by Rapana, I felt if he takes him on, he scores a try, but then Canberra don't go down to 12 men at that point. You know, and they lost that player, we scored. They lost another player, we scored another 3 tries. So we did take our opportunity while they had players off the field, no doubt. And then I think when we come out in the second half, they sort of just grounded a bit. We made one sort of really good effort while they were down to 11 or 12 men. Then they got their players back. And then Hudson Young scores a try. Now, that's a try I want to really talk about because it was in the 51st minute. That set of 6. Powasa had some really good runs. I think he'd had 7 runs in his 18 or 19 minutes. He made a couple of big tackles, but they worked him over and they worked Moran over. They worked Hutchison over. They worked our markers over. Marnie was already doing a lot of work. Twice in that set, we were left without markers. So they got their quick, they just executed everything in that set, Canberra, and they have to be given kudos for that. And then on the back foot, quick play the ball. Halfback goes left, I think, to Strange. So they've sort of wrong-footed both Curtis Moran and Powasa Falmasili, which creates the overlap. Then Hutchison has to sort of come in and the draw and pass, and Hudson Young runs straight through. I didn't feel Hudson Young was that good until that point. You know what I mean? Everyone's saying the great game he had, and he got plenty of daily end points because he got 2 tries. He ran his lines. He did his job. He always tries hard. He's always there. But I think there were better players on the field. I think Strange, the 5'8" for Canberra, his defence changed the game and essentially won them the game with two of the hits that he put on. Carraz dropped the ball a second time, which gave them possession, and not long after that, they score their 4th try. But, Jacob still put in a great effort, tried to make up for it for the whole match, had great stats across the board, but those errors cost us big time, as did Connor Tracy's. Hutchison put Tracy through a gap earlier in that second half. And it was... I'll get to you soon, Pete, because I was off the page. You didn't see the chat. So Hutchison put Tracy for a gap, and that was he did really good backing up on the inside. It was a really well-worked play, line break assist, and then he spilt the ball when he got tackled by Rapana. So he was a little bit shaken, obviously, from dropping that early ball. And this is sort of like, well, I was talking to Pete after Tracy dropped that first footy. I'm like, here's the curse again. We're going to lose by a shitload. And the fact is that even before they had players sent off, we were busting them apart. I think line breaks were 4-1 at that point in our favour. So it's not that Canberra just aren't beating themselves in that match. And they were grubby, they were gritty, they were tough. They had some really good sets. We probably had some of our worst defensive sets all season in that game. But in saying that, we still only went down by 4 points. I felt it was a much better performance than the previous year when we lost 34-30. And in that game, I felt we were horrible, especially in the middle. Just absolutely horrible the way we let them walk all over us in that match. And we had some bit of luck and got some really nice, exciting tries in that match. But, sort of caution to the wind, nothing to lose sort of stuff. Whereas this team's playing under a lot of pressure. I think they really felt the pressure of that match. It was a short turnaround. There was a lot of talk. That sort of probably may have annoyed a few of us fans. There was all, Serrato was talking to as they were doing in the Magic Round and that, and there was a lot of talk with the media. And it was all, how great are the Canterbury going? And I was just like, oh, they're just talking us up too much here. Nearly every second commentator was tipping the Bulldogs to win. And Canberra, with the 94 reunion of the grand final where they smashed the Dogs, where Terry Land got knocked out early in that game, but still played on. They really turned up for the whole 80 minutes. And by the 65th minute, we were stuffed. 5 minutes to go. Matt Burton was passing back inside. Like he was given the ball to kick, and twice he passed to people in a worse position than him. And that's just one of the rules which you can't. It's just one of the things that I think organisations now in rugby league are saying, never give it the ball to someone in a worse position than you're in. And he did that once or twice, which was just evident of how fatigued he was. And that's a bit of an issue. So that's something that we need to manage over the next few weeks, because there's Origin coming up, and I've got a feeling he might be picked, whether he's 18th man or centre or 5'8", he's in the running. Might have played himself out of it in that game, although he had some really good moments. And then you've got the situation of, we had the situation where I think Crichton will be picked. Addo Carr's still a big chance to be picked, especially now that Bradman Best is out, which I sort of don't mind. Looking forward to the Newcastle game next week. But I think that weakens them a lot, losing a player out wide on their edge like that. So the Raiders game, just too many errors again from people that we trust, like Jacob Carraz. But I went and watched those tackles by the young mate. I see that 5'8" as they've got gold in that player there. He is an absolute gun. The way he went about it, that was just phenomenal. The way he put them tackles on. I reckon they did their homework. Carraz is a real awkward person to tackle. And I think they targeted where to get him, and they were just perfectly executed tackles by someone who's tough and fearless and playing above their weight. And, that kid's got a future that And I think he needs to stay with the Raiders and build that side up. They've got a lot of young spine players, good pathways coming through. I think it'll be good to have teams like Canterbury and Canberra competing near the top in the future. You know what I mean? It's just good football. All right, let's move on to some of the questions, but that's enough of that. Pete, speaking of Kyle, it's only Ben Hunt making him look good and vice versa. Kyle has had 0 offloads and our Drew's had 7. Just our execution is failing. Well, from that point of view, 100%. I think Kyle is there and that's what they're talking about. Kyle is freeing up Ben Hunt, and Ben Hunt speaking glowingly of Kyle. But if you watch him, he's still not engaging the line. He's still not getting hit in the back when he passes, very rarely. He's hardly kicking the footy. So he averages what? 18 bloody... He averages 50 kick meters a game. Yet we've got people talking about Drew Hutchison, who's averaging 200 meters a game in his kicks. And he's gradually kicked more and more. And I think it just comes down to Burton's... Burton still isn't kicking the lever off the footy. And I think if he runs more in a game, he's not as effective kicking. You know, it's just part of him still as a young fella, knowing what his capabilities are and where he can stretch himself. And he really struggled to stretch out in that last 15 minutes. That effort to try and score that try off the Hutchison offload, then the Marnie kick, that was his last sort of deal. He was gutted after that. Kawasa played 18 minutes, 23 post contact and 7 tackles, 82 run meters, then gassed. Yeah, 100%. You know, I read comments and a lot of people could, and see that's the thing where we get the Hollywood of the game, you know, and most people don't have the luxury to, or you know, the inability to sleep, so they just watch the replays of the Bulldogs over and over and over again like I do. But not everyone has the luxury to watch, you know, they're so busy or whatever, and they can't watch the game more than once or twice. And watching Pawasa, he really hit the advantage line. He got some good contact going, and he got up and played the ball quick, and he was aggressive. Forwards, players see him in the defensive line. He hits hard like a man. He's definitely an enforcer type. They expected when he was at the Roosters, when he started, him and Daniel Saluka-Fafita had similar sort of attributes and accolades, and they were going to be the next big things. Roosters sort of let him go. Dogs are trying to see what if these guys can reach that potential that they demonstrated as kids. And Pawasa, for that period of time, looks like that type of player, and you sort of get attracted to the romance of it. I don't know if that's the right word, but of just him smashing into the line, and that's great. But as I said, that Hudson Young try, if you go watch it, he was, in the end, the one who ran out of gas. That try scored at the 51-minute mark, right? If Pawasa's coming off then, he's not going to come on again late. You know what I mean? He's not the player they're going to bring on. He's done. It's normal for teams to only play one of their big boppers for 20 minutes. So he's just got to keep developing and getting more and more out of him. And maybe you get 25 minutes out of a guy like that. Maybe they bring him on for 12 minutes, then take him off at half time, bring him on for 12 or 13 minutes in the second 60 to give us that lift. But as the fatigue starts to hit, I think Serrato wants to go more with those players that can just keep getting back into the defensive line, keep plugging the hole, keep showing that desperation in defence. And really, how many times did they break us down? KO Weeks gets a late offload, skips through, bad miss by Burton, bad miss by Cherry in the same movement, quick play the ball, they ran to the advantage line, Hudson Young ran his line. It wasn't a constructed play. They chanced their arm, they utilised some speed, they broke some tackles, and and they made us pay. But as far as constructing tries through pressure and all that sort of stuff, they did that once in the whole match. Our defence, which I'll bring up the next one. So, Jade, now you going, mate. I think our defence was still good. Only gave up 2 tries against our defence. The errors are killing us. So just to back, that's 100% right. So that's exactly what I was just saying. We really didn't, our defensive structures didn't really break down. They broke down once or twice in the match. And as I said, they were from errors. We gave up points from errors, direct from errors, like the same play, we dropped it, it's gone, try. Everyone saw it. So I don't know why there was such huge, we're all frustrated watching it, and we were angry about it. But as far as for big parts of that game, the team competed, they completed at certain points. They put on some points, they made breaks, they created opportunities. There was, and that's it. As long, for me, if you'd asked me at the start of this season if we'd be 4 wins, 6 losses, average had lost by less than 6 points in 5 of those matches, right? Or 4 of those matches, and that we were a chance of winning those matches with 5 or 10 minutes to go in all of them. If you told me that at the start of the season, I'd be like, I'll take that straight away. I'll take that, right? That's what I'm saying. Are we expecting too much? I know it's just so frustrating because if we're going to play finals, which we want to do, and we can sort of feel that at certain times our team looks like it's definitely in the top, playing like it's a top 8 side, competing like it's a top 8 side. But for us to play finals, we've got to beat the Raiders. We've got to beat the Dragons. We've got to beat the Knights every time we play them. We've got the Knights. We've got the Tigers. We held on against the Roosters, and we smashed the Titans. So we did that against those teams. Got a lucky one back against the Roosters. We needed to have beaten Souths. You know what I mean? These things are probably going to come back and bite us, but that doesn't mean that we can't scrape some other victories along the way. The attack was very predictable, side to side, the attack. No creativity. Yeah, Sam, I think that, I watched both. You watched the Broncos and Manly game after our game, 13-12, the final score. And there was definitely moments where the teams were breaking each other, making breaks and creating opportunities. But both sides had long periods on the other team's try line, and couldn't make it happen. Teams with, very good players in it. It was a really greasy track. It was a slow track, and teams were fatigued and tired. There was a lot of effort. The average play the ball speed in the first half for Canterbury and Canberra, I think both sides are averaging about 3.1 or 3.2 seconds, which is phenomenally quick. And the Canterbury Penrith game was faster than that the week before. And we saw how Penrith performed. It's not that Penrith aren't that good. Obviously, not having Nathan Cleary's an issue. Not having their backup half, Schneider, is an issue for them as well. The Warriors haven't been flogged by every side. Like, they've been in a lot of games that they've lost. Just like the Cowboys have been in a lot of games that they've lost. They've scored points. They've just let in too many. It's a close competition. You know what I mean? These sides, but Penrith were a little bit flat. They play the way they play. They put in their effort. They do everything they can. I think they lost one of their big forwards. Lindsay Smith might have got injured during the game as well, I think. But they ran out of puff. But they're still trying. They're still competing. It's a good game, that one. I enjoyed that one, the Warriors and the Panthers. There was lots of good games, actually. The Sharks and Roosters one, what a high-scoring game, 38-32 or something. Ridiculous. Dave, I think we've come a long way from last year. Have we reached our new level yet? Do you think maybe we expect too much? 8, 9, 10th is a good step up from the last 5 years. Less errors, possible top 8. Yeah, I think that's a good summary, Dave. I think you've said it all there. Like, sometimes we look like we're a top 8 side. Do we look like a top 4 side? Top 4 teams, when they're playing at their best, I don't think we've hit that level, but we've definitely hit a level where we've looked better than a lot of teams in the comp. Whereas, but some teams are starting to warm into it and starting to get some players back and starting to improve. Other teams are falling down a little bit, and we're sort of, are we about to fall off the cliff a little bit? You know, tough draw, no team. We play more top 8 teams than 15 other teams in the comp. We play 20 of 24 games where our opposition team has a longer rest than we do. With 5 of those games, the opposition have come off the bye, which is unprecedented when you compare it with the rest of the clubs. I think there's one team that has to do it 3 times. You know, it's just skewed against us, out of our favour. No 5-day turnarounds, but we do have another horror trip to Bundaberg and Auckland, which I think is a 6-day turnaround after Bundy. That's happening again, where it's a home game for us because we signed that deal in Bundaberg against the Dolphins. By then, the Dolphins, I think, will be coming back to the pack. They might have some players back, but I think there'll be a bit of fatigue in their performance. Just my prediction, but you never know. But yeah, Dave, I think there's gonna be a lot depending on the next 2 weeks. Bradman Best out for the Knights is good for us. When are the Origin teams picked? Does anyone know? There's a question. When do we pick the first Origin sides? Yeah, anyway. Paulie, seem like a team in every game. Gifted a try, we gifted 2. Yeah, 100%, mate. We're a better side, but the last 20 minutes were terrible from our key players. Yeah, well, the key players just struggled to keep up with the ball. There was some poor passes. There was some, people say lazy efforts. I just call it fatigue. You know, poor kicks and poor options. Yeah, we fell out of shape a few times. And as I said, Paulie, if you're watching earlier, Birdo passed to people in a worse position a couple of times in that last bit. We got the jibbers. Yeah, you could say that. The fact we're competing against some of these forward packs is impressive. Yeah, you could say that as well. So if anyone knows when the New South Wales teams will be being picked, because it's probably going to be when we've got to play the Knights. I think, unfortunately, we still missed one big bopper helper, Max King. Max King is probably one of our best players on the weekend too, as usual. Hopefully Daniel Saluka-Fafita could be a hope, but he's coming off a bad injury. Yeah, I don't know if it was you who talked about that last week, but yeah, ACL, coming back off an ACL, I'm writing him off for this year, you know what I mean? I can't see him really contributing much in that way. But the New South Wales Cup side, I might show us that. Now, New South Wales Cup lost on the weekend to the Blacktown Sea Eagles, Manly's team. It was a very young side that was presented. So I don't know if you can see it here, but we've got Joash Papali at 1, Gerald, Hayes, Eli, and Blake Wilson. So that's, at the moment, you know, that's our probably the 5 that will get sort of the next players up. But there's a problem. They've also named Toby and Joseph. Blake Taff hasn't been named. Now, I'm thinking Blake Taff's going to need a game of rugby league, right? So if Blake doesn't play, if he doesn't play in this game, I think he's going to play NRL this week. Just got a feeling, and that's the feeling I've got, because he needs a game of footy. So if he doesn't play NRL, I can't see them putting him 18th man unless he's got a niggle or something. I'd suggest he's going to play in this match somewhere. Now, Joe Ash is the fullback. I'm not sure there's any appetite to put Joe Ash back to under 21s. It's a very tense situation at the moment. It normally happens around this time of year. Players start to realise that they're not going to be re-signed. It sort of builds in anxiety levels over the next 6 or 7 weeks. And this is where some things can start to fall apart, Lord of the Flies sort of shit. If anyone's read that, people start turning on each other. They see their futures going out. What are they going to do? Now, Pawasa's named there. So Jake's named. So I'm expecting that Blake Taff is the next man up. But I can't see them not giving him he needs some match fitness. I'd be very, very surprised if he doesn't play NRL, he'll be playing New South Wales Cup for sure. Do they put him in the halves? I can't see them putting him to fullback, but if they do, that's just what it's got to be. But it's so hard. It's really good to have this depth. There's people who think Blake Wilson should be in first grade. Maybe that's true, but he's not the Fox. And Josh Adokar is one of the best, fastest, most exhilarating wingers in the comp. Blake Wilson has the potential to get there, but he's not as fast. His work and his tackle breaking ability is really good. He's very smart the way he runs the ball back. He can pass a ball too, which I don't think people realise. But so can the Fox. When the Fox makes a break and passes back on the inside, he rarely ever fucks it. Most of the time he gets it right. Puts it straight on the chest. Hardly ever seen him stuff it. It'll probably happen this week. But anyway, Eli Clark. Don't forget about this kid. He's pushing hard. Hayes has had some good games in that level. But this level's so far behind first grade. And Canterbury fans need to adjust to the difference, right? There's a reason that when Des Hasler has a club, that the New South Wales Cup teams rarely perform. They're not interested in this competition, right? This competition is purely to develop players to play NRL. And they have to, and they've focused on a lot of key KPIs and stuff. But it's so hard because there's a player in this side which is going to go on and play 200 NRL games, and it may not be with Canterbury. And sometimes your clubs miss out on those players. So it's just, this kid here, Joseph O'Neill, I'm so excited by him. And I just hope he's able to handle the defensive work that's going to be required of a Bulldogs half. And I expect him to be signed up shortly, just like Bailey Hay would expect him to be signed up shortly. Jordan Samrani's already in the top 30. He's sort of transitioning from that centre to that edge back rower. Harry Hayes has transitioned from a centre to an edge back rower. Lipoi Hopoi is another one that's got a future. Katoni Katoga's in. He's been suspended. With the ball, really good. Without the ball, still a lot of work to do. And this kid, Romano Cook, shit happens. I said this a couple of times. Stuff happens when he comes on. really good future for him. Keep an eye on him. And the blonde fella, Jack Underhill's coming through. Lachlan Vale, also another very good player. Tedavano, still a long way off, I believe, in the way he's been playing. Gradually improving, sort of 2 steps forward, 1 step back sort of stuff, but I can't see him featuring with what I've seen. But this back line is gun, and it's just that's where we're out of balance now because we've got so much depth in that back line. We can bring anyone in, and they're basically going to can play to an NRL level, but the forward pack sort of dips off a little bit, and we've got this hybrid style that we're playing. So, what else have we got going here? Pete, we need to get some size on the bench. I'd like to see Katoni come in when he's available. Yeah, well, Pete, I definitely agree. And he's shown a bit of toughness to when he's, he got sent off in that Penrith game early. We held on. He come back on and was just barnstorming. When he came back from the Melbourne game where he completely cost us the game. And I'm sure he was told that by fellow players in reserve grade. I'm sure he got that on his report card from the NRL coaches. He didn't make an effort. And his old mate scored a try in Sean Bloor and it cost us the game. And I never target players. I don't target players. But he went back. First big run that he got, he went back from Melbourne, played reserve grade the next day, scored a barnstorming try. If he's made mistakes, he's gone out there and tried to make up for it. He wants to be a first grader. He wants to be a Bulldog. And he's got to fight to get his way back. And he's going about it the right way. So good on him. Hopefully he gets a chance. But yeah, when you sit there and you make an error like that, sometimes it's going to take a while to get it back. Now, was Liam Knight named in that team? I didn't even look. No, he must be injured. Be interesting to see if Liam Knight is actually injured because he's not playing. He might be injured, or it'd be a bit of a turn up if he's gone back to Ron Massey, but I really doubt that to be the case. He must be injured. Teams for the 2024 Open are set to be revealed following the conclusion of round 12. Right. So the conclusion of the Newcastle game. Or is this round 12? Oh, so the Bulldogs versus Knights game will be minus the Origin players. Oh my God. Who's going to play Origin for Newcastle? Who is going to play Origin for Newcastle? That is the question. Well, they won't have Bradman Best regardless. Oh my God. They won't have Bradman Best. So Dane Gagai, is he a chance of playing Origin for Queensland? Probably not. Are the Saifidi brothers a chance of playing Origin for New South Wales? Potentially. Tyson Frizzell, potentially. But that's it. So they're going to be pretty much close to full strength. Whereas Canterbury, we're going to be without Stephen Crichton. So that cancels out Bradman Best, you would think. And that might be it. I think that Josh Curran is a big chance of playing Origin for New South Wales, although no one's talking about him. I think he's a huge chance. That's probably it. That's probably it. So it could be Crichton, Adokar, and Burton and Curran. But more realistically, I think it's just going to be Stephen Crichton. I think they're going to go with Jerome Luai, and I think they're going to go with Nico Hines in the halves. And for the centres, I think they might go with Staggs and Crichton, or Jesse Ramian or something like that. But yeah, that's going to be interesting to see. But I'm looking too far ahead as usual. Let's get back. Where are we? Surprised we haven't seen Tadavano in the NRL yet. So I was just talking about that. I'm not surprised. He just hasn't been up to it, mate. Strong reserve grade side. The forward pack's very young, and the bench is very young, but the back line is phenomenal. Gerard couldn't do any more to get in the first grade, but unfortunately totally stacked in the back five. I heard a rumour which come through some forum that Gerald's a target of the Roosters. So there you go, just to upset some people. The dog father's going to be very pissed off. I haven't even told him. I'd probably get killed. Jaden, I love Blake Wilson. He's a huge fan of his game, but he's our third winger, a fantastic replacement and future winger of the club. I've said this a few times that Blake could play fullback too. But also, look, I've got a feeling that Josh Adokar won't be re-signed. He might be able to get more money if he goes somewhere else. I can't see Gus giving him $500,000 again. And he may not expect more than that. I don't know. That's just going to come down to the Fox. He might be just so happy with his business and the way things are going. I'd say he would move, though, to another Sydney club. And it may even happen before the end of... before he's off. He may leave early, as in the end of this year. But he looks so committed to our club. He's done everything he can. And, it's one of those things where I'd hate to see him wear another jersey. I know there's games where we're not getting much value out of Josh. But there's breaks that, you give him an inch, he takes a mile with his speed. And there's just so many wingers who aren't able to move within such a small amount of space. And if only he got some of those got 2 or 3 more balls on the weekend when the space was there, we win that game comfortably. But yeah, a lot of these back five players will end up moving on. I'm afraid it's just the way it is, and that's what you got to have with the team. But what we need is to have those back five players come from within. So we need to see like the Joash Papalis. Joash could probably play 5'8" even, and he's probably going to get bigger. He's not huge. He's not tall. He's not small. But he's a player who might have to come in on the wing and make it as a winger, as a tough winger. If we've got a really good fullback there. If not, he comes through as a fullback. But yeah, you've got to have players that aren't on much, that are juniors, that have got talent, got skill, got a lot going for them, that can come into the side. That's when your system's working. The Taylor and Mays and that could play a whole range of positions. Taruva's a fullback. You know what I mean? They've got so much talent that was coming through. Tungo, or whatever his name is, Targo. I think he can play 5'8" even. They just got so much talent, and that's what you need. You just need you just got to find a place for these players. Matt Burton was always a half. They're like, oh, we need to get him in the first grade. They let one of the experienced centers go, one of those journeyman fellas, and they whacked him up there, and he was probably one of the best players in the grand final, center of the year. But he had to be in the side. So that's what we've got to do. We've got to have those junior pathways leading, the halves academies there. They're going to make halves out of these kids. Some of them have become hookers. Some of them have become small locks. skillful players that'll sort of adapt and find a spot for them, but many are going to end up in other systems. But they're going to learn their trade at Canterbury, and as the kids, we're going to have the pick of the bunch because they're going to want to come to our halves academy. And Canterbury want to be in a situation where we're creating the next Isaiah Katoa, and we can't keep him because Mitch Woods and Joey O'Neill are in our halves, and we can't keep the ones coming through. So they're getting purchased, for way more than they're worth to teams that are rebuilding and stuff. You know what I mean? And then we've got to know when to let our really good players go. And you got to give it to Penrith. No one would ever think they're breaching the cap, because they let so many players go. And we want to be like that, but do it our own way. Cruz, the only Origin player on the outside backs. Do you move Carraz to centre and play Wilson at wing, or bring a centre up? Carraz goes to centre for sure, and Wilson goes to the wing. That's 100% how it's going to go. Unless, it's you either bring Wilson to the wing or Skelton to the wing. That's how it's going to go. If the Fox and Critter both play, Carraz goes to centre. And Wilson and Skelton both play NRL. Or they put Blake Taft to fullback, put Tracy into the centres or onto the wing, and then only bring one of them up. And that may even happen first. So Blake Taft, and that actually probably is likely to happen now when I think about it. If Critter's the only one who plays, I think Tracy might move into the centres, and they might just put Blake Taft into fullback. That's probably what's going to happen first. Wilson will come up. Carraz to centre. Oh, or Tracy could slide into centre with Taft to one. Sorry, I should have played what you said first, Paulie. Sorry about that. That's probably more likely, I reckon. We both went through the same thought process, so there you go. I think Wilson wing, Carraz centre, but Carraz hasn't gotten through as much work when he plays centre, but Wilson could make up for that. Well, that's it. They're both going to go looking for the ball. I think Burton and Critter are likely, and Curran is an outside chance. Burton either 6th centre or 18th man, which will stake him away from us anyway. 100%. Burton's chance for the S-demand selection. He's playing well without demanding a spot. I think they'll go Lua at 6. I agree, Paulie. Good summary of it. Burton's chance if he dominates versus the Dragons. Well, you know what we need to do? We need to get a 1-week loan deal to have Jake Avrello come back to the Bulldogs for Thursday night's match, because the Dragons can't beat us when Jake plays. Well, he scores 2 tries every time he plays them. So, and apparently they're the ones that are interested in getting them to the club. Maybe they see him as a lucky charm. We'll still have a strong side come Newcastle. More worried about this week, to be honest. This is a must-win. Yeah, same. I said that, Pete. Keep looking ahead too much. Dragons look likely. I'm glad it's at home. It's going to be a tough game. Yeah, well, that Dragon side is big, and I think if they watch that Hudson Young try, that's where you weaken the Bulldogs. That's how you get us, and that will be the blueprint. But to actually have that work, they have to wait. It's not just that. Just didn't come from playing one set of footy. That came from waiting until certain players were in certain spots and had played certain amount of minutes. It was actually really smart, and it was good coaching. It was well constructed, and I think that's the blueprint to break down our defence, unfortunately for us. They're way better than last year, the Dragons. I don't agree, to be honest, Paulie. I think they're they've had a much easier draw than last year. They've copped some massive floggings still this year, and you know they smashed the Titans last year. They smashed them again this year, and the following week they got smashed by the Dolphins. The win over the Warriors, look, I think they're playing with a bit more confidence than last year, and they've got a good squad. Like Ravawala and Sully and Lomax, they're not bloody easy beats. Terrell Sloan's been there for 3 years developing in that spot. Ben Hunt, we've seen what Ben Hunt can do. Flanagan's got over 100 games experience now. You know what I mean? RFM, he's in his 8th or 9th season, although he's only played about 105 games. They've got Leilua, who's just strike. Blake Laurie, like I'd bring Blake to our club any day. Some people think he's rubbish. I think he's a tough player. Jack DeBellum was an Origin player who's now getting it going, you know. Bloody fabulous Frankie Molo. He's a very good player. You know, New Brown. I think his attitude's not the best, but I think he plays all right. They look committed and fresh off the ball. They're going to be tough to beat, mate. Like, to be honest, I think they've been the perennial underperformers. Jaden Sewer's he hits hard and runs hard. They've got a good side. They should be top 8 every day of the week. Right? Last year, I actually predicted them to make the 8. I watched them versus the Titans. The way that they come out and were breaking the bones of the Titans in that match, the way they smashed them was phenomenal. And then they were beating the Broncos 14-6. They were all over them for 60 minutes. And the Broncos then just blew them away in the final 20. I think it was the final 15, actually. They got like 30 points or 34 points in the last 15 minutes. So there's definitely, they run out of puff for sure, and there's definitely some issues with them. But they are, as far as the players in their side, Jack Bird is a real fucking goer. He tries his heart out. They're perennial underperformers. They should beat a lot of sides that they don't beat. Piss pink boots off. I don't know who that is, but anyway. I think recent form is good for Dragons. That's all I'm going to go. That's all I'm going off. Yeah, well, they've had 3 wins and 2 losses out of their last 5 games. They beat the Warriors. They beat Souths. They got flogged by 60-16 versus the Roosters. The Sharks only beat them 20-10, which was a pretty... Sharks always sort of looked in control, but it was a pretty tight game. I forget the other game. You know, they got flogged by the Cowboys after leading in that game. Flogged by the Dolphins. You know, they've had some real up and down performances. And they're just one of those sides. We're vulnerable. We're vulnerable, and our boys are under a lot of pressure. And I just hope with Indigenous round, and I think that's could work in our favour this game. There's just going to be, you know, if you watch the way Josh Curran played in the Indigenous game at the start of the year, it'll give you a lot of confidence about how much his culture means to him. Because he played 80 minutes in that match, and the amount of try save and tackles he made in that game, in a team that was thrown together, you know what I mean, was phenomenal. And I was just like, oh, I can't wait to see him play for the Bulldogs. He's just desperate. Especially defensively, and that's where it's all about. So, been going for a while, guys. I was going to talk. I'll quickly give my summary and good night. Be a close, tough game. If we cut our arrows, it's ours. Yeah, good stuff. Just going to give my report card for the Bulldogs. For defence, we're an A. For attack, I rate us a C+. Effort scores, for defence, we're an A. For attack, I'll give us a B. Not that that means anything, but we're still equal third for defence for the season in points per game that we've conceded, which is phenomenal from where we came from. We're averaging 19 points a game, so just under 20 points a game in attack, which at this point of the season is the best we've been in a very, very long time. Normally in the second half of the season, we will increase our attack by, 4 to 6 points per match. And I expect that to happen. We'll run in some bigger scores. Defensively, though, if we can keep it to around the 16 points or less per match, we're in a really good position to make the 8 with that sort of, if you can't keep losing games and keep it that tight, but we'll have to see how it goes. Completions have been an issue. We've got to be careful how we go about that. We really, really do. If we just give away cheap ball, we're going to be toast. But I think the Dragons are going to come hard through the middle. They're going to target our players. Quick play the balls, winning that ruck is what it's going to be all about. And we're going to be under the pump to make it happen. I think the Dogs will go hard, real hard for a fair while. It's just about how well they can hang on. Hopefully we'll see what happens. Yeah. Just getting a message from me mate Brian. Sending me a private message. He said if Gus gets rid of the Fox a year earlier, well, it's not always Gus getting rid of players, and that's what I'm saying. We tend to think that Gus is the messiah behind everything when he's not. Gus takes all the bullets because it's just easier that way. So people give him the praise, people give him the criticism. Water off a duck's back, whatever. But if the Fox may get a better offer to go somewhere else. I can't, the Fox is currently the most popular player amongst our kids. If you ask all the kids, we've seen some footage of them. They interviewed 100 kids around Belmore, and 80 of them said the Fox was their favourite player. I think Matty Burton was the second one. So he's very well liked. He's been great for membership. He's been great for engagement. The amount of stuff he does means that as a clubman, he's worth his weight in gold. But if he decides he wants to leave, or he decides he can get a better offer elsewhere, or it fits his life, the club won't stand in the way. I don't think it's a case where we're just going to shop him off just so we can make way. I think that he's not going to be offered a $500,000 contract or a 3 or 4 year deal with the Bulldogs past 2025. I just can't see that happening, and I just don't know what his value would be as far as Gus wants to spend on a winger when we've got players that are coming through that are going to need to take spots and take some of our cap. And if they want to also either have to pay someone like Bronson Cherry a lot more money to keep him, if he's worth that, there's all these questions that are going to pop up. And a $500,000 winger is someone who is possibly going to be, one that they look at. It's just the reality of it. So there you go. We've been going for an hour. Thank you to everyone who's popped in and said hello. Loved all your feedback, all your information. I agree with pretty much all of it. And whether I do or not doesn't matter. You know, we're just fans at the end of the day, having a chat, having a yarn. Look forward to getting Pete on the channel. Look forward to getting Jaden on the channel. Brad Graham said he's going to come on at some point. If I need someone, so yeah, definitely want to get more people on. Dane's currently ill, so he can't join at the moment, and he's a bit sad with the way Souths are going, as you can imagine. But that's pretty much it, guys. The club, I think, in summary, I think as I said at the start, if you were to ask me at the start of the season, we'd be 4 wins, 1 bye, and 6 losses, with 4 of those losses by 6 points or less, with being third in defence in the comp, with having so many good defensive stats in our favour. You would take it every day of the week. But we're now going to draw a line in the sand. You know, it's 4 wins. 4 wins. We need to get to 12 or 13 wins if we're going to make the finals. So, you know, big job ahead. It all starts this week with the Dragons. Then hopefully, because it's that Origin week, if we get a couple of players who play Origin, it may not be a bad thing, because it will bring in some fresh players into the side that could add energy to the others. Other players take on more responsibility. You know, it might not be a bad thing if we lose a few players to Origin. But if we only lose Critter, that will be a loss to us. But it does give those other players a chance to impress and, you know, bring a new dynamic to the side and hopefully some wins, which is what we want to see. But yeah, I'm not confident at all over the next few weeks. But I will say that, you know, the Dogs have got something about them this year, some toughness about them this year. And they might be able to prove that on Thursday night in Indigenous round, a very important round of rugby league. So, which, as Jaden's just said, to finalise, we've shown we're capable of top 8 footy. So we've got higher expectations now. We're very keen to get on, mate. We'll get. He's keen to get on. We'll set something up soon. Bloody oath. And check out Jaden's podcast. You can find that at All Things Bulldogs and a few other different Facebook groups. It's on Spotify, so it's a good listen. Anyway, guys, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for everything. Like and subscribe, share it around, whatever you want to do. And if you want to jump on the channel, or if you're watching this after it's, you know, you're watching this tomorrow or whatever, or later on, if you've got questions for next week or stuff you want to talk about, put them in the comments, and I can look at it and write it down to talk about it next week. Cheers, guys. Go the Dogs.